Okay, welcome to C# first session. We will have many sessions in C# over this year, and this course is aimed for people who have no idea about programming. My goal is that if you guys learn C#, you will be able to program nice computer games as well as nice graphical user interfaces, for instance, mobile phone devices for iOS or for Android. The cool thing with C# is it's used for many different scenarios, many different applications. So you can use it for many different scenarios to program mobile phones, computer games as well. And I chose C# because it gives you a really nice structure and a very nice understanding for all computer languages. And it's very widely used, especially as a computer scientist, you will have to have C# as a competence. So that's why I chose C#. If you want to program in C#, we can choose different ways of programming it. And the most professional way, in my opinion, is programming in Visual Studio. Visual Studio, I will recommend a download like a Visual Studio Community. You just Google for Visual Studio Community and you can download a suite. Well, it's very important because if you search for Visual Studio, you probably find Visual Studio Code as well, which is just an editor. Visual Studio Community or Visual Studio in general is a very powerful suite and very huge suite to program C# applications. This might take a very long time. It takes you probably too long time to just install it today. So I wouldn't recommend it to install it right now. So I would recommend it to install it maybe tonight or for the next session. In my opinion, it's the best way to program C#. Of course, there are other ways to program C# as well. If you want to just have a nice editor, which is very easy to install and which doesn't take a lot of space on your computer, I would recommend to use Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is a very nice editor for all or kind of all programming languages, which is not the same as Visual Studio Community. I like Visual Studio Code if I am a beginner and if I want to use other programming languages. I would never use Visual Studio Code for C#. I would always use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Community, like in general. If you don't like Microsoft products in general, then I would probably use MonoDevelop instead of using Visual Studio, which is a Microsoft product, or Visual Studio Code, which is also a Microsoft product. So I would probably use MonoDevelop. The cool thing with C# is you can always program in different software sets, so you don't have to use Microsoft stuff. Some people hate Microsoft stuff, so that's why they developed MonoDevelop. MonoDevelop is also working on a Mac, is also working on Unix machines in general, like Ubuntu and other stuff. If you don't want to install something in the first place, if you really don't want to install something, you can always install stuff like, you can always program like online. I can recommend different stuff. I would recommend today, which I'm using also today, is like REPL.it, which is like an online programming website, which is kind of okay for the beginning, but I would just use it for today because I don't want to use the hour to install the stuff. I really want to program a lot. So that's why I chose REPL just for the day. Otherwise, we will use Visual Studio Community for the next sessions. because I want to use and I want to make really nice, powerful applications. So I really recommend this stuff. So, but if you have questions how to install stuff, please ask after 5 o'clock. It's no worries, just to ask. So that's why I'm using REPL.it to program my stuff. No worries if I haven't logged in to REPL.it. I can use it now, of course. But if I using REPL.it and created a C# file, it should look like this. If I begin from scratch, I should go to REPL.it, typing it in, and I will come to a website. Probably I have to log in here. I can use Google or Facebook or other stuff to log in. Actually, I can use whatever website or whatever like email address whatsoever to log in to REPL.it. So I can use other stuff, for instance, to log in here, as long as it is an email address which is valid. So you can log in with other stuff. So I can log in here with start coding, and I can log in with here username, email address, and password. It's really not important to have like a valid password or whatsoever. I just log in with probably Google, because I have a Google account here. And now I just used Facebook before. So I log in with Facebook. I log in with Facebook, for instance. Yeah, because I used Facebook here before. So logging in here. So, and then I will arrive at this site. And then the cool thing with REPL.it, which is like a just very nice way to program in the very first place, it gives you so many possibilities to program online in many different languages, which is sometimes very nice because I don't have to install anything. And you can program in many different languages, and we choose C#. I choose C# here, and I give this file a name, maybe session 1. I give it a name. So if I use a name here, I can create a website. Of course, if I use Visual Studio Code or if I use Visual Studio, I have other ways to installing it, or I have other ways to create a new blank file. I would always recommend to use templates or to use like a ready built file like in this stuff. So that's why if you're using Visual Studio Code or if you're using Visual Studio already, I can send you like this template file or this template code in Zoom, because you can use it afterwards in your you can copy it to your site. Bless you. So here we go. Just copying it in that you can use it, everybody. So perfect. Console. So, but if you have problems, if you encounter problems to install your stuff, so please don't hesitate to ask after 5 o'clock. So just try to follow the input. We have lots of time afterwards to solve all your installing problems. And I have done such courses before, so I know many people have installation problems, so no worries. You have many ways afterwards to ask. So I just chose REPL.it today because it's very easy to program. And if you don't know if you like programming or not, you can always take it online and you can try it out. If you really like programming, I would always recommend Visual Studio Community for C#. If you are interested to learn other languages, I can always recommend other programs. So just ask if you want to have like a idea, or if you have like my opinion. which is not always like probably the best opinion, or it's my personal taste. Okay, so I will program this session today online because it's the easiest way. Of course, in the future, I will program in Visual Studio Community, and I will show you afterwards or in the next session how to make a new file. So if we have C#, and this is a basic course, so if we have C#, it's always like another programming language. It's always about why do we have different programming languages? We have different programming languages because we need different scenarios. We need different scenarios because we want to create different stuff. We want to create mobile phones. We want mobile phone apps. We want to create websites. We want to create computer games or different stuff. So we have many different programming languages, which makes it able to us to implement or to create applications. So we have different programming languages to create such different applications. But the cool thing is, with certain programming languages, we can create many different things. And in my opinion, C# is probably not the best to begin with. Probably I would say C++ is the best to begin with, but C# gives us most scenarios of opportunities to program different cool stuff. And I'm really fond of programming computer games, and that's why I chose C#. So this course is also very focused and aimed to program also computer games. So let's see. So the very first basic structure of a C# program is also very similar to many programming languages, and is always that we have as a starting point, we use a main. Main means this will mark my starting point. In many, or actually in all programming languages, kind of the starting point is always the main. Sometimes it can be hidden in different languages. For instance, in Python, we don't see the main, but it's like in most programming languages, the program itself, the code begins where we see the main. Main means our starting point of our application. So in other words, if we want to see our program, it doesn't begin at line number 1, it begins at line number 5. Actually, it jumps right into the curly brackets in here and begins working here. That's a very important information at the very beginning. So if you have like 1,000 lines of very ugly code, the computer searches for the main, and the main will mark my starting point. That's very important. So if we want to simulate, if we want to translate the code into a working application, we can press many different ways, but in like online versions, we can press run. We can press run. If we have like a Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, we will probably find also a button which is like run. We press run. And after a certain while, after a certain time, we will probably see output, which is my ready application. So on the right side, I see the ready application, which tells me, okay, hello world, which is always the first application a programmer will program. So I always do, like if I learn a new language, the first thing is I try to program hello world. So this is always the first program a programmer will program in this actual code. So the first thing we do is like hello world. But what's happening here? So I'm sorry to talk so much in the beginning, but it's very important. What happens in the beginning? I have a code. I have a code in C#, which is like this. And this is translated. This is translated somehow to a running application, which is in many scenarios like a executable. Executable means, okay, it's running. I can use it. I can execute it. And this can be an app. This can be a mobile phone. This can be a computer game. And if you come from a Windows, PC, it's probably like the file extension .exe. If you come from Mac, it's probably a file extension like DMG, but it's like on Unix, it can be actually anything. But if you come from a Windows side, a Windows computer, you probably see like a file extension like .exe, executable. So on the right side, we see the ready application. We see and ready application. We see the finished application, which is translated from text to my ready application. And the procedure which we use here to translate the code into an application is called compiling. So we use compiling to translate the code from the code to a ready application. So we compile it. So in other words, when we press run, we use like a component which is called compiler to translate the code into a running application, which is also very important. Sounds probably boring in the beginning, will be very important afterwards. So if we want to translate our code into a running application, we use the compiler. So that's about it, about the basic stuff here. When we press run, we know already the program jumps into line 7, line 8, line 9, line 10, it jumps into here. And we begin now with programming. The first command we use in C# is console.writeLine, and inside we can type in some text. The first thing we can use in C# to press or to print out text on the screen is console.writeLine. And I really urge you guys to do the same with me, to just not listen, to just also program with at the same time, to just try out some stuff here. I can try out, I can welcome to my application. I can test stuff. And if you really want to test stuff, you just type in words in here. So the first command we use in C# is console.writeLine. If we come from Python, if you have some understanding from Python, this would probably be the same like print. If we come from Java, this would be system out print line. If we have some knowledge about C++, this would be like cout. So there are many different ways. In C#, it's called console.writeLine. First command. Every command in C# is ended by a semicolon. So please, many errors and many problems arise because we miss or because we haven't typed in semicolon. Semicolon is a very important way of formatting code in kind of all program languages except in Python. Python, we use tabs to installations to use or to create some formatting. Okay, so if we type in run here, we type run, we press run, and then we see the output. We have some output here. Okay, let's go. We wait like hours and welcome to my application. So of course we can already copy this stuff. We can copy this command and go to the next line. Welcome to my application. And we can copy it. And we can say, welcome to my application. How is your day? How is your day? So if we go to the next line and copy this line, we will also have another output. And as you probably understand, the command write line means please text something into a line. So console write line types in something into a line and then goes to the next line. So how's your day? Welcome to my application, and I can do this stuff forever. I can do this stuff forever. How's your day? Or I can say, okay, what's your name? And I can always simulate it. So the process in the beginning is very important. We type in some stuff and then we compile it and then we see the output. As a programmer, we don't type in for hours and hours and then we hope it's working. No, we always type, compile, and run. Very important. Okay, so as you can see now, the first command is console write line. That's the first command. You can always use console write line as many times as possible. Okay, the next command. The next command, if I want to use, I want to have interaction. I just don't want to have just welcome to my application and just display text on my application. I also want to have interaction. I want to have interaction. I want to get information from the computer or from the keyboard or from the user, from the mouse, from my virtual reality environment, from my iPad, from my car, whatsoever. I want to have interaction. So that's why we have to create interaction. How do we create interaction with the computer? The first interaction is like, I also always have to create questions in the beginning. If I have no question, the user would not understand what to answer. So if my question is not very good, my answer will not be very good as well. So for instance, I can begin with a question and I can say, welcome to my app. What's your name? I can begin with a question, what's your name? That can be my question. To answer my question, what's your name? I wanna store this answer, which is coming from the keyboard. I know when I type, or when I press run, I can see that the display shows me my first question. Welcome to my app. What's your name? And of course, I want to insert the answer. I want to type in the answer. What's your name? Arthur, Robert, Tim, whatsoever. I want to interact with my computer. So how can we do that? If we want to store information, if we want to interact with my computer, I want to read. I want to read from the keyboard. I want to read from the keyboard. Of course, I can read from the mouse. I can read from other stuff. I can read from my touchpad. I can read from other stuff. But in the beginning, we want to read from the keyboard. So how do we read from the keyboard? We can read from the keyboard by writing console. Please follow me. Read line. We can read information from the keyboard by writing console.readline. Very important. Read line. Console.readline. But console.readline means I get information from the keyboard. This information I have to save. I have to store this information somewhere. I have to store this information into a container or into a package. I have to store this information into a certain memory. And how do we do that in C#? I can type, for instance, to the answer, what's your name? I can say, okay, I can call it name. I can call it name. So name means I want to store my information, which I have here, and I want to store this information into the container name. I can call name also N. I can call name A. I can call name N2. I can call it whatsoever, but be advised to call your variables or to call your containers always that you understand what's in there. So if I use name, for instance, it means probably, okay, I want to use it for a name, probably. So there are many people in the world, and I know many people, they just use always A and B and C, and all of a sudden you have like A plus B plus C, and you have no idea what's going on. So this is crap. So we don't want to use this. There's still a red sign. So we have to tell the computer, what's in there. What's in there in this container? What's in this container? Because we don't know what's in there. And now it's a very important information for us in the beginning. The first thing we learn in programming is that we deal with text. Many scenarios deal with text. So if we want to tell my computer that the container name has some text inside, not nothing else, no numbers whatsoever, I have to tell my computer in the beginning that this container has text. Text means, okay, I wanna use text in my container, which has the name. So this is very important. But if we use programming, then we have to tell what's text. And if we use programming languages, for all programming languages, we can use the keyword string. String means, okay, the thing which is coming now has to be a text. So if we want to make some cookies, we need some flour, we need some sugar, we need some ingredients. And that's the same thing here with programming. If we want to use a container which has the name, I have to tell the computer, please, I want to have a container which has the name, and which uses text, which uses a text. String means I want to use text. String means for all programming languages, that I want to use text. So see it somehow as a cookbook, or see it somehow as a recipe that I want to do. I want to cook a cake. I want to make a cake. And in the beginning, in the very beginning, I have to tell the computer what kind of ingredients I have. And the ingredients are, for instance, my name. So if I want to use my ingredient afterwards because I want to make a cake, I can say, okay, I use my ingredient name. So I can use it. So I press run. And what's happening now? What is happening now? Let's see. Very important beginning. So I'm sorry to talk so much, but it's very important. Welcome to my app. What's your name? The cursor is waiting now that I insert information. And I can insert information. For instance, I can insert my name, which is a text. So if I press enter now, what's happening now? What's happening? Jesus Christ, nothing else than Arthur is stored in the empty container, which has the name. So it's kind of a area in my data system or in my memory, and which has the name, which is also very important that I understand, okay, this container has to have text inside. So I will repeat this kind of procedure to show what else we can use. As a next step, for instance, I would say, okay, I want to ask another question. I want to ask, for instance, what's the name of your sister? Or what I want to ask, well, in which country are you born, for instance? So I can create an ingredient again. And this time I will make it from top to bottom. So I will say, okay, I want to ask a question. Where do you come from? Or in which country are you born? So I will ask, and I will create a container, which I will call variable in the future from now on. So I will create a variable which has the name, maybe country where you're born or country of birth, probably. I can call it whatsoever, but I will call it country of. So always be advised to use underscores maybe, or use scores or underscores. I will use a variable which has the name country of birth with semicolon at the end. So I created a variable which has the name country of birth, which is just a container in my memory, which is empty. It just has the name country of birth. So I can, of course, I can copy those two lines. I can copy those two lines and change my question. I can change my question and I can type, what's your country of birth? Or I can ask, like in a bit nicer way, in which country like this, country are you born? In which country are you born? If we ask the question, in which country are you born, we are expecting to answer something as a text. So I can use my variable country of birth to get inside. So what's happening now if we compile this program already? Very small program, but still, if we compile our program, what's happening now? And you, of course, you will have many problems in the beginning, but I will help you afterwards. Welcome to my app. What's your name? I will type in, for instance, Robert. In which country are you born? Austria, best country to be. Let's go. In which country are you born? So what happens if I run it again? I just wanted to show it. If I run it again, what happens? Welcome to my app, and I will call it Max now. If I type in Max and press enter, Max will be stored in the memory in the variable name. It will be stored. After it is stored, I will continue to the next line, and the next question will be asked. In which country are you born? So here, and I will type in, for instance, a country where they have such a nice weather, Ireland. And what happens? Ireland will be stored in the variable country of birth. Why do we use variables? Because we want to reuse information afterwards. We want to use it all the time. So because if I want to use and if I want to reuse my information, I can do that in C# very nicely. I can just write, for instance, I can copy my console write line. Now I really want to welcome you or welcome me with my name, which I typed in. I can, for instance, write welcome to my name. Now welcome to my app. And then, for instance, press plus name. I can press plus name. But what happens now if I press name, if I compile it? We know already, we compile it. I won't use translating anymore. I will just use compile. If we compile the code, welcome to my app. What's your name? Robert. In which country are you born? Italy. Okay. Welcome to my app, Robert. I get an individual salvation. I get like, they tell me, hi, welcome, greetings for greet forms to greet me in my app. So even though maybe I wanna include some extra text after my name, I can also I can also do that very easily, much easier than in other languages, other programming languages. I just type in plus, and then I'll say, welcome to my app, Robert, or name, and I can ask in which country, where do you live? I can ask this, where do you live? So if I want to include variables into my console write line, I can do that very easily in C#. I can do it very easily and do that and run it. So here we go. Console write line. As I said, we have much time afterwards, after 5 o'clock, after the input, not much time to ask and to play around. Welcome to my app. I can call it Arthur this time again. Which country are you born? Let's say in Poland. Welcome to my app, Arthur. Where do you live? I live in best place to be, Selamsee. There you go. And then this information is used. So I can use it. So I can say, okay, as a next step, I can also use string. Now this should be easier, going easier now. String place of living. Let's call it like this. Sounds strange as well sometimes. Place of living, and I can copy my console write line, console read line structure. As we can see, as a programmer, we copy all the time. Okay, we copy all the time as a programmer. We use this and try it out like this. And what happens at the same time? We have like a question, then we have an answer, and the answer is stored into my variable. So I can use this, of course, blah, 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 and test it again. As we can see, we always type and test, compile, test all the time, Hansi Hinterseer, which I born, Austria. And Hansi, where do you live? In Kitzbühel. Probably Hansi lives in Kitzbühel, I don't know. And ready. So the first structure we see in programming languages is often question, answer, question, answer. And the nice thing in C# and C++ and Java, we always have to think about ingredients. We have to think about, okay, which kind of ingredients do we want to use? And this means a very important part in the beginning. And of course, here we always have questions like, okay, why do we write it in the beginning? Well, if you want to make a cake, you also have to go to the grocery shop in the beginning. Before you cannot make an Apfelstrudel if you don't have some apples at home. So that's just kind of crap. So we also always have to think about, if we want to make a cake, we also have to have ingredients. So next thing, the first thing in programming is text. We always think about texts. But if we want to make not text, if we want to handle, for instance, numbers, we have to do something else. If we want to handle numbers, for instance, what's your age? How high is your IQ? Or how many kind siblings do you have? Probably 0, but how many siblings do you have? Probably some of them. If we want to handle numbers, we have to think about how can we handle numbers. The first thing, if we want to create numbers, we have to divide them into comma numbers or into ordinary numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, -10, +10, whatsoever. Or if we have numbers like 10.5, 10.11, -11.6, whatsoever. For all programming languages, it's always the same. And that's why programming is so fantastic. Because if we want to use just ordinary numbers, we can use integers. Integer means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -10, -12, but not commas. No comma numbers like 12.7, 12.5, whatsoever. So if we want to use ordinary numbers, we can write int. Int means this will be a number. This will be a number. For instance, age. Age will be a number. Or int siblings. How many siblings I have? Or int people in this room. People in the room, for instance. Or I can make, of course, int players. If I want to create a computer game, I probably can write int players, because I won't have 7.5 players. I will have 7 or 8 players. Or it's the same with age. Well, age can be 17.5 as well, but we begin with like 7 or 12 or 8. As we can see from before, I create ingredients in the beginning. And if I don't use my ingredients, it's just useless. So I can, of course, delete them as well, but I will just leave them there, even though probably some of them I won't use. How can we use the same procedure like before to create a question and to create an answer in C#, which is very nice as well and gives us many opportunities. To ask a question, it's always the same. I can use console write line. Console write line is very powerful. I can use it whenever I want. And I can type, for instance, what's your age? What's your age? So I can type, what's your age? And when I type, what's your age? I probably expect that I'm answering with numbers. Of course, I could answer with 13 in text as well. But let's assume that I will ask and I will answer in numbers. So the general structure is kind of the same, which is like age is console dot read line. I just was writing it before. That's kind of the same. But even REPL.it is very intelligent and tells me, you dude, you're typing something wrong. You are wrong here. Because console.readLine expects that the answer is a text. Well, age, I told my computer that age is not a text, that age will be a number. So the easiest way to do this is to convert my text into a number. And how can we do that in C#, which is also very powerful, which is kind of strange at the beginning, but gives us many opportunities afterwards. And we just convert this keyboard input. We convert it. And how can we convert it? And I just type convert. And I want to tell the computer how to convert it into what I want to convert it. Convert is a very powerful command, which gives us many opportunities. And if you have installed Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, I don't have to remember it, because if I press like the punctum here, I can see it automatically. Even in REPL.it, I can see it. Okay, I didn't know that. Convert, and then to int, because I want to convert it to integer, to int, and that's like depending on the operating system, but we begin with 32 because it's like 32 bits, to int 32, and we use it with like here brackets again, just to see the structure. We have console read line as an input, and we wanna convert the input. We want to convert the input to an integer, And how can we convert this input to an integer? We just type convert to int 32. I know and I understand that this is somehow a bit strange. Some people are a bit puzzled about this, but don't take it too seriously, and just take it for granted, and you will see after a certain while, you just type this in automatically. So no worries. And what happens now if I use my code? Let's see what happens now. If I use my code now, I wait for an hour or two that my code is compiled. And welcome to my app. What's your name? Arthur. Okay. Arthur will be stored in name. Which country are you coming from? Let's say USA. USA will be stored in a country of birth. Arthur, where do you live? Where do you live? Let's say in Bode. Just say, Bode. Bode will be saved and stored in place of living. And now if I type in what's your age and type in 13, 13 will be stored in the variable in the container age and will be automatically converted to integer, which is a number. So why do we use numbers? Of course, because we want to have calculations, because we want to make a calculation with it, because we probably want to do like, okay, age, like price multiplied by blah, blah, gives us this result. So we want to use numbers. We have to use numbers. If we learned, if you learned programming for like 30 years ago, most of the variables in the beginning were integers or were numbers. Now, most of the programming languages assume that the most important stuff is text, which we are very text-based. So sometimes we have to convert our variables into text. So that's why. So we press run and test it again. Very important. Welcome to app. Let's max. Okay, max. In which country? Blah, blah. Okay, welcome to my app. Where you live? Okay, blah, blah. What's your age? Okay, 67. My age. What's 67? And 67 will be stored into age. Okay, so if I wanna create, or if I wanna change, or if I wanna just add another question, for instance, siblings. Okay, siblings. I see in REPL.it the variable is not used. Okay, then I probably use it. So I go here and use it. So I copy those two lines. Okay, as a programmer, programmers are really lazy people. Okay, I am very lazy. I do lots of sports, but if it comes to programming, I'm just lazy. I just copy all the time. So please don't type the stuff and think, okay, you're a superhero. Now, please just copy, be lazy. Copy, copy. Especially when you know this code is working, then please copy. Okay, so we just change the question. For instance, how many siblings? How many siblings? How many siblings do you have? And I can change my variable into siblings. Siblings, like this. Or I can create another question. As I can see, I have a question, I have a variable which has the name players. So I can say, okay, like this. I try to make nice looking code to try to make it as nice as possible. I can ask, how many players are in your computer game? How many players are in your game? And then I can change the stuff to players. As I said, we're like in a beginner's course, but that's why I always try to repeat stuff a lot, because it's very important that we change it, and it's very important that we practice this stuff. So as we can see, this structure is always the same. We have our ingredients, we have a question, we have an answer, which is also called user interaction. So this is a user interaction, and we create our ingredients in the beginning, of course, because we want to use them afterwards. So we want to use them. We want to use, for instance, age, because I want to use age. If age is too high, if age is too low, then my program will end. Or if my name is Arthur, then my program will tell me to piss off. Or if I have more than 100 players, then the Nintendo Switch tells me, are you crazy? This is not working. Or if my place of birth is Austria, then it's probably, this is the place to be. You can always want to use this information. It's great to display something. The next step is to get information, but we want to use this information. So the last input we have today is we want to use this information. For instance, I want to use my age. I want to use integer. I want to use integer information. I want to use integer information. And I can type if my age, I use brackets, please, just use normal ordinary brackets. If, for instance, if age is greater than 100, I will use curly brackets now to create a nicer structure. If age is higher than 100, I will use curly brackets. Curly brackets is like Alt GR and 7 or Alt GR and 0 to use it. Please be advised to use curly brackets in order to create a nice structure. If age is greater than 100, I could, for instance, tell my computer, okay, Jesus Christ, you are really, really old. Old, but not obsolete, probably, like Terminator said. You are old. You are old. Go home. Okay, whatever. Always, okay, computer scientists always try to be funny. So, okay, pity themselves. Okay, please sometimes smile. They are not funny, but they try to be at least. So if age is greater than 100, okay, console right line, you are old, go home. Else, which is this structure as well, else, and I try to use curly brackets as well. So please be advised to use curly brackets, not ordinary brackets. Try to use curly brackets. Then this makes stuff much nicer and much more structured. And I could say, for instance, okay, you are old and you are not so old. Maybe you are welcome. I can say this can be kind of, so don't sue me for this app, but it's okay. So as you can see, as a last step, I wanted to include some information that gives us some possibilities already to play around with such variables. Like, for instance, if I want to tell my computer, okay, if the age is greater than 100, then you are old. Else, I don't have to use brackets with else, because else means, okay, if all the stuff before is not working, do the rest. Else is the next stuff. So I can use if and else to exploit my information, to use my information, to give my computer even more opportunities or more possibilities to create an application which is kind of useful. So I will stop the recording now and I will help all the people, or I will be open for any questions. And of course, now it will be in Norwegian and English, and I will be online and will be offline. Of course, this is like a very easy going course. And please be advised now to play around, to make mistakes, and to ask all the time. So first session will end, the recording will end now.